Hello, so I think this is the ContraPoints. Just from memory of your video, I might miss certain things. I mean, I could have taken notes. And let me say also, I'm familiar with you over the years, but you know, I haven't watched all your videos because you were kind of a YouTube atheist. But on the other hand, I really appreciate when you realized the method of internet conversation tends to be choose an idiot and attack them, and that this, well, I don't know, now I'm going into my interpretation. The problem with that is it creates this space between you and the other person, and that the audience is gravitated towards the center of mass of that space, which is more towards them than you are. So anyway, this is very interesting though, and I want to just like be a little bit. See, I like to choose people that I appreciate and respect, and then disagree with them. So I could rant on you about this. What is it to say that it's photoshopped? I think it's very honest. I've seen some presentations. I didn't watch the video you linked yet, but I will. But I've seen presentations by the guy and the people that do images for Hubble and other astronomy work. And I think it's incredibly honest. And yes, it is art. So that point is interesting and true. Of course, it does say something positive about art, that art is a part of science, is what it says. You can't say that because it's art, it's not science. That's defying the whole point you're trying to make subtly, or are making subtly, that the people that say you could do away with art are correct. You know, they're not. You have to make decisions when you compose an image. Your eye is photoshopped, right? Do you know about the optic nerve? It hooks in the back of the eye, and there's a blind spot. And there's a little thing you can do with a piece of paper and some spots. If you put a dot on this line and move it, you know, so that it's right in your blind spot, you won't see the spot. It looks like the line is continuous. Your own brain is photoshopping the images you see. So they're all photoshopped. You know, Polaroid, is it photoshopped? What if I took a picture with two cameras and one's way better than the other and gets the color right? Better, gets it better. So I go in there in Photoshop and I adjust the color in the worst one, you know, using the other as a guide. I photoshopped it, but I made it more realistic, right? What if I alter the camera, the worst of the two cameras, so that it adjusts the color internally with a program? There was no hand manipulation. So are we going to say that the issue is whether a human manipulated it? We already said the human mind is manipulating it. Well, I said that, but you know, royal we, okay. So even the scientists, you know, have you ever seen totally raw images from telescopes? Digital images, they suck. They look terrible. There's cosmic rays. There's, you know, distortions due to the CCD. All of these things can be corrected with, you know, Photoshop-like techniques. Now, the difference is that instead of doing it just for a visual pleasure, they do it to represent what's really there, right? Now, when they make an astronomical image, yeah, if you were in a spaceship really close to that nebula, you wouldn't see it. That's an infrared light, or, you know, you wouldn't see it. It's too dark for your eyes. Your eyes are the thing making a mistake, though. When they take infrared light and put it in the optical where you can see it, they are showing you the real shape of a real thing. Now, the colors are definitely, it's worth knowing. It could be disillusioning. But the colors, of course, like that famous, beautiful picture, and it's in purple and whatnot, of the, I think it's called the Pillars of Creation nebula near, the Eagle Nebula, I believe, is a part of it. Maybe vice versa, but I believe that's the way it goes. And, the colors in that are arbitrary. It could be bluish or reddish or greenish. So, I don't know. Is that something that people need to be made more aware of? I mean, to me, as someone into science since I was 8 or as young as I can remember, it never was disillusioning. I mean, I immediately wondered, what? Can we really see these things? Because the fact of the matter is, some nebula, some galaxies are big enough for us to see with the naked eye. They're just not bright enough in wavelengths that we perceive. I did go south of the equator once in my life and was able to see the Magellanic Clouds. That was amazing. Like the Milky Way, you can see them, and that was amazing. But there really would be a lot more if these things were in wavelengths and bright enough that we could actually perceive them. And we can't, and that's important for people to know, but that doesn't mean these images are not true. And the thing is, they're melding science and art. It's a beautiful thing that they've done, because they've used art to increase the truth. Like, I haven't seen the video, but in the presentations I've seen, one guy pointed out that there's this interesting thing you can see in painting where if things get lighter and a little bit bluer, they look further away. Like if there's a rows of mountains, painters will make the mountains further away because of the atmosphere. It gets more hazy, right? It gets more faint. So this is a technique you have to use. Why? Because if you don't use it, you haven't changed the human mind. The human mind still reacts to this. If you just use blue because you're like, well, that's the high energy, light, so we'll use the higher energy optical wavelength to represent it, and we're going to be scientific that way. You've made a choice that way too, and you're going to make it look like it's in the background. So you should consciously do that. Now, so that's the point. And another thing I wanted to say is in Photoshop, that program originally, its main techniques, its base techniques, are all things you do in, when you're developing film. You have to decide. If you decide not to do them, you make an effect. If you decide to do them, you make an effect. Have you ever noticed with a webcam or a video camera, if you point a remote control at it and press a button, that light on the remote control that never lights up, the infrared sensor thing, it lights up. Well, because, those cameras receive some infrared. So is that photoshopped? I mean, it's not real. Is it photoshopped if I take that, video into whatever, Photoshop for animation, and remove that blinking light because of what humans see? Or is it more real that we don't see the blinking infrared light because we don't see infrared light? When we take that picture, we see it. Is it more real to be shown something that's happening that we didn't see? So these questions are very deep, but I would really like to discourage being disillusioned and rather say that this is an enlightening realization, a tremendously enlightening realization. Cheers.